I told my parents about a once-in-a-lifetime event and begged them not to miss it. They laughed, saying my brother's soccer game was more important. What they skipped was my wedding. When the photos went viral online, my in-laws were furious, and my dad finally snapped. I didn't know. But if your mother did, we're done. Now the whole family is falling apart. You know, sometimes life throws you curveballs, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares you for standing at the altar on your wedding day, staring at two empty chairs where your own parents should have been. They chose my brother's critical soccer game over my once-in-a-lifetime wedding, and their casual dismissal ignited a family firestorm that not only tore everything apart, but also revealed a lifetime of painful secrets. Growing up in our suburban Connecticut home, I always knew my place. My dad, James, was a successful investment banker, always working late, leaving my mom, Linda, to manage all things family. And then there was Tyler, my younger brother, for years my junior, the undisputed golden child. From the moment he showed a flicker of athletic talent at age 6, Mom poured every ounce of her energy into him. Me? I was the reliable one, the responsible eldest who aced school, stayed out of trouble, and honestly, rarely asked for anything. My achievements? They got a quick, good job, before the conversation inevitably swiveled back to Tyler's latest triumph. I told myself this was normal. Every family has its quirks, right? But deep down, it stung. It always stung. When I graduated high school as valedictorian, my parents showed up, sure, but they practically bolted right after my speech. Tyler had a regional championship game that same afternoon. Mom gave me a hurried hug. We're so proud, honey, but we have to get Tyler to his game. College scouts might be there. I watched them disappear, rushing past other families who were still laughing and celebrating with their graduates. My acceptance into Cornell? I got that news alone in my room. I planned a small, celebratory dinner, but that morning, Mom called it off. Tyler needs us at his science fair tonight, sweetie. His project might qualify for state. We can celebrate your college next weekend. That next weekend never came. 4 years later, when I landed a junior partner promotion at my architectural firm, a huge deal for me. It coincided with Tyler's high school play. I booked a nice restaurant for my parents and me. 2 hours before, Dad called. Your mother says we can't miss Tyler's performance. It's a small role, but you know how these things are. Can we reschedule? I ate alone at the bar, clinking champagne glasses with strangers who overheard my order. These patterns became my life's background music, so consistent I should have stopped hoping. But there's this stubborn flicker of hope inside you, especially when it comes to family. Maybe next time. Maybe one day I'd matter just as much. Then, Autumn walked into my life. She was the interior designer on a luxury apartment complex, collaborating with me. Smart, incredibly creative, and unexpectedly hilarious. She made those long planning sessions feel like adventures. After our third meeting, I asked her for coffee. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became weekends. 2 years later, I couldn't imagine a life without her. Autumn came from this amazing, tight-knit family in Vermont. The first time I met them, it was like stepping into a movie. Steve and Margaret, her parents, welcomed me with genuine warmth. Her sisters, Jessica and Ashley, actually listened when I talked about my work. When I mentioned an award I'd won, the entire family raised their glasses in a toast. The contrast to my own family? It was jarring. Your parents must be so proud of everything you've accomplished, Margaret said that night. I just nodded and changed the subject. Later, Autumn found me on the porch swing. You never talk much about your family, she said, sitting beside me. Are you close? I paused. We're traditional. My parents are really invested in my brother's athletic career. He's got real talent. Autumn studied my face. And what about their investment in you? No one had ever asked me that. I didn't have an answer. Over the next year, Autumn saw it all firsthand. Family gatherings consumed by Tyler's scholarship offers. Last-minute cancellations because Tyler needed them. She even noticed how Mom subtly scheduled Tyler's events to deliberately clash with our important dates. Phoenix, this isn't normal, she said after my parents missed her birthday dinner for a Tyler scrimmage. You deserve better. I defended them, out of habit. They're just supporting his potential. Sports scholarships are competitive and architectural awards aren't. Autumn just looked at me. You're nationally recognized in your field at 32. When was the last time they acknowledged that? She was right. But how do you change 32 years of family dynamics? I kept hoping for recognition, bracing for disappointment. Then came the discovery that blew everything open. While spring cleaning, I was helping my parents move some boxes from their attic and found a collection of old family videos. Feeling nostalgic, I took them home. Amidst birthdays and holidays, I stumbled upon something horrifying. A video from when I was 17. My mom, in the kitchen, on the phone. "Coach, is there any way to move Tyler's game to the 23rd? Phoenix has some academic award thing on the 22nd, and it would be so much more convenient if they didn't conflict." She paused. "Oh, the 23rd doesn't work? What about the 22nd at 4? Phoenix's event starts at 2, so we could make an appearance and then leave." I sat there, stunned. This wasn't a one-off. Video after video showed her on the phone, deliberately, methodically scheduling Tyler's events to clash with my milestones. The manipulation had been intentional all along. When Autumn found me hours later, still staring blankly at the screen, I showed her. Her face darkened. "Phoenix," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "This is emotional abuse. She's been systematically ensuring you're always second place." For the first time, I couldn't defend my mother. The evidence was irrefutable, captured in her own words, preserved for years. Something inside me shattered that day. The persistent hope that things might change naturally? Gone. If change was coming, I would have to demand it. By our 3rd anniversary, I knew Autumn was my person. She showed me what unconditional support felt like, celebrated my wins, comforted my losses, and never made me feel like I had to earn her attention. I planned my proposal carefully, designing a custom ring inspired by the building where we first met. On a crisp October evening, I took her to its rooftop garden, now completed, glowing against the twilight sky. Surrounded by city lights and the structure we'd helped create, I asked her to marry me. "Yes," she cried, tears streaming. 1,000 times yes. We called her parents first. Their joyful shouts echoed through the phone as they demanded details, insisted on celebrating. Then we called mine. Mom answered. "That's nice, dear," she said after I shared our news. "Tyler just got invited to a special training camp this weekend. College scouts will be there. We're so excited." I forced myself to continue. "We'd like to have a small engagement dinner next Saturday. Can you and Dad make it?" "Oh, I'm not sure. Let me check Tyler's schedule." In the background, I heard Dad ask who it was. "It's Phoenix," Mom said. "He's engaged to Autumn." Dad took the phone. "Congratulations, son. That's wonderful news. Of course, we'll be there. Just tell us when and where." I could hear Mom protesting, but for once, Dad stood firm. "Linda, our son is engaged. Whatever Tyler has going on, he can handle it without us for one night." That small act of support, coming from my father, sparked a tiny hope. Maybe, just maybe, my engagement was important enough to shift the family dynamic. The engagement dinner at Autumn's parents' home was warm and festive. Steve, her dad, toasted us with tears in his eyes. Margaret had quietly found out all my favorite foods and cooked them herself. Her sisters presented us with a scrapbook of our relationship, full of photos they'd collected. I was overwhelmed by their thoughtfulness. My parents arrived 30 minutes late. Mom immediately mentioned the traffic they'd hit coming from Tyler's practice. Dad, however, seemed genuinely happy. He brought a good bottle of champagne and engaged Autumn's family in conversation. For brief moments, when Mom was distracted, I caught glimpses of the father I'd always wanted, interested, proud, and truly present. Wedding planning began. Autumn and I picked a September date the following year, a beautiful restored barn venue between our hometowns. We double-checked with everyone about conflicts. September 14th is completely clear. Mom confirmed, Tyler's soccer season doesn't start until October that year. With the date set, we dove in. Autumn's family was involved every step of the way. Cake tastings, decor, photographers, bands. My parents? Largely uninvolved, despite my attempts to include them. I told myself it didn't matter, as long as they showed up on the day. 6 months before the wedding, I arranged a dinner to share wedding details with my family. I reserved a private room at Dad's favorite steakhouse. 3 hours before, Mom called. "We can't make it tonight, Phoenix. Tyler has a practice session with his new private coach." "Mom, this dinner is about the wedding," I said, battling frustration. "I reserved Dad's favorite place. Can Tyler reschedule? This coach is very exclusive, Phoenix. He only had this one opening. Your brother's future depends on making the right connections. I took a deep breath. And my future is being built right now, too. This wedding is important to me. It's just dinner, Phoenix. We can talk about wedding stuff anytime. I went to their house the next day instead, armed with information packets. Mom flitted in and out of the living room as I showed Dad venue photos, explained timelines. This is going to be a once-in-a-lifetime event, I emphasized, looking directly at both of them when Mom briefly sat down. Having you both there means everything to me. I've never asked for much, but I'm asking for this. Please, make sure September 14th is completely free. Of course, we'll be there, son. Dad clapped my shoulder. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Mom just nodded absently, already checking her phone. The months blurred. Autumn's family remained enthusiastically involved, mine, distant. Still, I clung to the hope. For months out, I attended my cousin Grace's baby shower. Helping clean up, I heard a conversation that made my blood run cold. My mom, in the kitchen, on the phone. Coach Williams, thank you so much for considering this special request, she said warmly. I know the regular season is over, but this exhibition game would mean so much to Tyler. September 14th would be perfect. The other parents are already on board. I crept closer, disbelieving. Yes, I understand it's unusual to schedule a game after the season ends, Mom continued. But as the team's largest donor, we'd consider this a personal favor. Tyler needs this opportunity to showcase his skills before college recruitment begins in earnest. The coach must have agreed, because she thanked him profusely. I ducked out of sight, my mind reeling. She was deliberately creating a conflict with my wedding day, despite knowing the date for months. On the drive home, I called Tyler. Hey bro, what's up? Tyler, do you have a soccer game scheduled for September 14th? I asked, no preamble. He sounded confused. September 14th? Nah, season's over by then. What? Are you sure? Nothing special being planned. Not that I know of. Should there be? Either Tyler was lying, or he didn't know yet. Given Mom's history, I suspected the latter. When I told Autumn, she was livid. Phoenix, you need to confront her. This is crossing every line. I agreed, but decided to gather more info first. I needed to be absolutely certain before making accusations that could shatter our already fragile relationship. 2 days later, I had my confirmation. Jason, one of Tyler's teammates, worked part-time at a coffee shop near my office. Your mom's going all out for this one, he said as he made my drink. Coach says it's just an exhibition, but she's treating it like the World Cup. September 14th, right? Aren't you getting married that day? The final piece clicked into place. My own mother was fabricating a conflict, and worse, lying to everyone about it, including my father. 1 week before the wedding, the final details needed confirming. Autumn and I had poured months into every aspect. Her parents were invaluable, coordinating vendors, making last-minute adjustments. My parents remained conspicuously absent. Still, I desperately hoped they'd prioritize my wedding day. Despite what I'd overheard, I wanted to believe Dad would insist on attending. I drove to their house that Saturday morning, armed with the final schedule. My parents were at breakfast. Tyler, home from college, was scrolling on his phone. It looked deceptively normal. Phoenix, good to see you, Dad said, rising to greet me. Wedding's coming up fast, isn't it? Coffee. I accepted the cup, trying to calm my racing heart. I brought the final schedule for next Saturday. Ceremony at 2 o'clock, but family needs to be there by noon for photos. Mom and Dad exchanged that look. My stomach plummeted before they even spoke. About that, Mom began, her voice dripping with the fake sympathy that always preceded disappointment. We should have mentioned this sooner, but Tyler has a very important game that day. A special championship match that could determine his college scholarship opportunities. I just stared at her, unable to process the sheer audacity of the lie. Tyler looked up briefly, then back to his phone, clearly uncomfortable. A championship game? I repeated. In September? Before the regular season starts? Mom nodded confidently. It's a special preseason tournament, very exclusive. Only the best players get invited. That's not possible, I said flatly. I confirmed with you months ago that September 14th was clear. I chose that date specifically because you said there were no conflicts. Well, this opportunity came up unexpectedly, she replied, spreading jam on her toast with steady hands. These things happen, Phoenix. I'm sure you understand how important this is for Tyler's future. I turned to my father, desperately searching for an ally. Dad, this is my wedding day. A once-in-a-lifetime event. I've been planning this for over a year. Dad looked uncomfortable, glancing between Mom and me. Son, I understand this is important, but this game could affect Tyler's entire future. Scouts from major universities will be there. And my wedding won't happen again. I countered, my voice rising despite my best efforts. This is the day I commit to. Spending my life with someone I love. Don't you think that deserves your presence? Mom laughed lightly, as if I were being dramatic. Phoenix, it's just a party. We can see the photos and watch the video afterward. Tyler needs us physically present at his game. You're an adult. You don't need your parents hovering over you on your wedding day. Her dismissive tone hit me like a physical blow. 33 years of similar moments flashed through my mind. Achievements diminished. Needs ignored. Presents requested, then denied. Always for Tyler. Always with the same excuse. He needed them more. This isn't just any day, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. This is my wedding. I'm only going to have one. I'm begging you both to be there. Please don't miss this. You'll have Autumn's family there, Mom said dismissively. And all your friends. You'll hardly notice we're not there. I'll notice, I said quietly. I've noticed every time you've chosen Tyler over me. How could I not notice when you're absent from my wedding? Tyler finally looked up from his phone, his expression uncomfortable. Bro, it's not that big a deal. Mom and Dad have always come to your stuff. One missed event won't kill you. I turned to him, incredulous. Always come to my stuff? Name one important event of mine they haven't missed or left early from in the past 10 years. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, unable to provide an example. I stood up, gathering the papers I'd brought. The ceremony is at 2 o'clock. Family photos start at noon. I'm asking you one last time to be there. We can't miss Tyler's game, Mom said firmly. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but his future is at stake. And what about my future? My happiness? Does that factor into your decisions at all? My father, at least, had the decency to look ashamed. Phoenix, try to understand. This is complicated. No, Dad. It's actually very simple. You're choosing to miss your firstborn son's wedding for a soccer game. There's nothing complicated about that. I left their house with a heaviness in my chest that felt like concrete. In my car, my hands shook so badly I could barely hold the phone to call Autumn. They're not coming. I choked out when she answered. They're choosing Tyler's game over our wedding. Autumn's response was immediate and fierce. That's absolutely unacceptable. Did you tell them how important this is to you? I begged them. Autumn, I literally used the words once-in-a-lifetime event, and I'm begging you. My mother laughed and said Tyler's game was more important. There was silence on the line. Phoenix, I love you, and I'm trying to be respectful of your family, but this crosses every line. Your mother is intentionally sabotaging your wedding day. She scheduled this game specifically to conflict with our date. I know, I said quietly. I heard her arranging it at Grace's baby shower. And you still gave her the benefit of the doubt. Phoenix, this is emotional abuse. She's manipulating everyone. You, your father, even Tyler. I couldn't argue. The evidence was too clear, too damning. My parents want you to know their house is open to you anytime you need to get away. Autumn continued, her voice gentler now. And my dad says he'd be honored to stand in for your father in any way you need on our day. The contrast between her family and mine had never been more stark. One embraced me unconditionally. The other repeatedly rejected me for reasons I couldn't control. That evening, I met Jason, Tyler's teammate, at a local diner. So this championship game on Saturday, I began after ordering coffee. How important is it, really? Jason looked confused. Championship? It's not a championship anything, man. It's a completely meaningless exhibition game against the alumni team. Half those guys are out of shape. 30-year-olds who played in high school. No scouts, no trophies, nothing at stake. My mother told my father it was a critical preseason tournament with college scouts attending. I said numbly. Jason snorted. Dude, no offense, but your mom is full of it. She practically begged coach to schedule this game. He thought it was weird since the season doesn't start for weeks, but she donated new equipment for the whole team, so he agreed. Everyone knows it's just for fun. I thanked him, driving home in a daze, trying to process the depths of my mother's deception. Not only was she choosing to miss my wedding, but she'd manufactured a completely fictional reason to justify her absence, and she'd manipulated my father into complicity. That night, I couldn't sleep. Autumn breathed evenly beside me, her hand resting protectively over mine, even in sleep. I stared at the ceiling, confronting the painful truth I'd avoided for decades. My mother didn't want me to have my moment in the spotlight. She'd systematically ensured Tyler received all the family's attention, all the celebration, all the support. And she'd continue this indefinitely if nothing changed. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of this betrayal. The tears came silently at first, then in heaving sobs that woke Autumn. She held me without question, stroking my hair as I finally mourned the parental relationship I'd never truly had and had finally stopped hoping for. "I don't want to start our marriage with this hanging over us," I said when I could speak again. "But I don't know how to let it go." "You don't have to let it go," Autumn said firmly. "But you can decide not to let it define our day. Your family's choices reflect on them, not on you, not on us, and not on our future together." I nodded, drawing strength from her certainty. "Then, let's have the most beautiful wedding possible, surrounded by people who truly want to be there." "That's my phoenix," she said, kissing me gently, rising from the ashes every time. Our wedding day dawned clear and perfect, one of those crisp September days that hints at fall while holding on to summer's warmth. I woke early in the suite at the historic hotel, momentarily disoriented before remembering. Today, I would marry Autumn. Despite my resolve to focus on joy, my first thought was of my parents. Would they have a last-minute change of heart? Would my father realize what he was missing and choose to come alone? I checked my phone. No messages. No missed calls. Just congratulatory texts from friends arriving for the ceremony. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Steve, Autumn's father, holding a tray with coffee and breakfast. "Thought you might need this," he said, entering with a warm smile. "Big day ahead." I thanked him, genuinely touched. "I know I'm not your father," Steve said, pouring coffee. "But I want you to know I'm here for whatever you need today. Autumn told us about your parents' decision." "I'm sorry, son." The simple acknowledgement of my pain, without judgment or platitudes, broke something open inside me. I kept hoping they'd change their minds. Steve nodded, understanding in his eyes. "That's natural. But today isn't about who isn't here. It's about who is. And there's a room full of people down the hall getting ready to celebrate you and my daughter." "Thank you," I said, meaning it for more than just the coffee or his words. "For everything." "That's what family does," he replied simply. "Now eat something. Grooms need their strength, too." The morning passed in a blur of activity. My best friend, Nathan, arrived with the other groomsmen. The photographer captured candid moments. Autumn's family moved seamlessly between her room and mine, bringing messages, forgotten items, and steady encouragement. At noon, we gathered for family photos. Autumn was sequestered, keeping the tradition that we wouldn't see each other before the ceremony. Her parents, sisters, and extended family arranged themselves around me. No one mentioned the empty spaces where my parents should have been, but I felt their absence like phantom limbs. When it was time for the ceremony, I took my place at the altar, scanning the gathering crowd one last time. The seats reserved for my parents remained conspicuously empty. Steve noticed my gaze and stepped forward. "I'd be honored to stand with you until Autumn arrives," he said quietly. I nodded gratefully, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. He took his place beside me, a steadying presence, as the music began and guests settled. The ceremony itself was everything we'd planned. Personal, meaningful, focused on our commitment. When Autumn appeared at the end of the aisle, radiant in her gown, the sight of her drove all other thoughts from my mind. This was what mattered, the life we were choosing to build together. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves. I promised to create a home where she would always feel valued and celebrated. She promised to stand with me through whatever challenges life brought. Neither of us mentioned family directly, but the subtext was clear to those who knew our story. When we were pronounced husband and wife, our guests erupted in applause. I kissed my new wife, overwhelmed with joy and love, despite the day's undercurrent of loss. Our photographer, Thomas, captured the moment perfectly. Autumn and me in our first embrace as a married couple, surrounded by friends and her family, with 2 empty seats visible in the background. The reception followed in the beautifully decorated barn. Fairy lights twinkled, long tables were adorned with wildflowers and candles. The meal, music, and dancing created the celebration we'd envisioned. If guests noticed my parents' absence, they were kind enough not to mention it. During the father-daughter dance, Steve held Autumn tenderly, both teary-eyed. When the song ended, Steve approached me. "Your turn, son," he said, gesturing to Autumn. "There's no mother-son dance on the program," I said, confused. "I know," he replied. "But you should have this moment, too." He guided me to the dance floor where Margaret, Autumn's mother, waited with a warm smile. "May I have this dance?" she asked simply. I took her hand, fighting back tears as she stepped into the role my mother had abandoned. As we moved, Margaret spoke quietly. "The day Jessica was born, I made a promise that I would celebrate every important moment in her life. I made the same promise when Ashley arrived, and again when Autumn came into our world. Today, I'm making that promise to you too, Phoenix. Your joy matters to us." I couldn't respond, but she seemed to understand. We finished the dance in comfortable silence, and when it ended, she hugged me firmly. "Welcome to the family, son." The rest of the evening passed in a haze of happiness tinged with melancholy. Objectively, our wedding was perfect. Beautiful setting, delicious food, heartfelt speeches, and a dance floor packed until midnight. Yet, the absence of my parents cast a shadow I couldn't completely outrun. Thomas, our photographer, approached me near the end of the night. "I've been capturing candid moments all day," he said, showing me his camera. "But there's one I think you should see now." The photo showed me at the altar, just before the ceremony, looking toward the entrance. My expression was a complex mixture of hope, disappointment, and resignation as I registered my parents' empty seats. Steve stood supportively at my side, his hand on my shoulder. "It's a powerful image," Thomas said quietly. "It tells a story beyond just a wedding day." I nodded, unable to disagree. "Thank you for capturing the truth." 2 days later, as Autumn and I prepared for our honeymoon, Thomas sent us a preliminary collection of photos. They were stunning, joyful, intimate, beautifully composed. Before switching off my phone for our trip, I impulsively posted one to my social media. The image of me at the altar, waiting, juxtaposed with a second photo of Autumn and me surrounded by her loving family during the reception. I captioned it simply, "Family is who shows up. Thank you to those who did." I thought nothing more of it as we flew to our honeymoon, deliberately disconnecting for a week of uninterrupted time together. Our honeymoon was blissful, a perfect beginning to our married life, unmarred by family drama or painful absences. For 7 days, we existed in our own world of beaches, adventures, and intimate conversations about our future. When we returned and switched our phones back on, my peaceful bubble immediately shattered. My social media post had gone viral, shared hundreds of thousands of times with supportive comments flooding in. News outlets had picked up the story. Groom's parents skip wedding for brother's soccer game. My private family drama had become public discourse. Dozens of missed calls and messages awaited me, from friends offering support, from estranged family members expressing shock, and finally, from my father. His voicemail sounded desperate. "Phoenix, call me back as soon as you get this. Things are falling apart here. Your mother and I. Just call me, please." Autumn watched me listen, concern etched on her face. "What do you want to do?" I took a deep breath. I need to understand what's happening before I respond. We scrolled through news articles together. The story had clearly struck a nerve, with thousands sharing similar experiences of family favoritism and parental absence. In the comments, people speculated about my family dynamics, some accurately identifying patterns of narcissistic parenting in my mother's behavior. Most concerningly, someone had identified my parents and our hometown. Local reporters had approached them for comment. According to one article, Mom had claimed she thought the wedding was just an informal party and would have attended had she understood its importance. Dad was quoted as being unaware of the significance of the event. The final blow came from an unexpected source. Autumn's father had apparently been approached by reporters and had given a statement. As Phoenix's new father-in-law, he'd said, "I'm outraged by his parents' choice to miss this important day." Every parent receives invitations to countless events in their children's lives. The critical skill is discerning which ones are truly once-in-a-lifetime moments. Phoenix clearly communicated that his wedding was such an occasion. His parents' decision reflects on them, not on him. The public nature of Steve's defense touched me deeply, while simultaneously escalating the situation beyond anything I'd imagined. This was no longer a private family matter. but a public referendum on my parents' choices. My phone rang again. This time, it was Tyler. Dude, what the hell? He demanded when I answered. Why would you post that and humiliate our parents? I didn't intend for it to go viral, I said honestly. But it wasn't a caption designed to make Mom and Dad look terrible. Do you have any idea what's happening here? Mom's crying constantly. Dad's barely speaking to her. Our phone is ringing off the hook with relatives, asking what kind of parents missed their son's wedding for a soccer game. A fake soccer game, I corrected quietly. An exhibition match with no significance that Mom deliberately scheduled to conflict with my wedding. There was silence. What are you talking about? I talked to Jason and some of your other teammates. Mom manipulated the coach into scheduling that game specifically on my wedding day. There were no scouts, no championship, nothing at stake. That can't be true, Tyler said, but his voice lacked conviction. It is true, and deep down, I think you know it. Another silence. Mom and Dad are fighting like I've never seen before. Dad keeps saying he didn't know. That Mom told him it was just some casual courthouse thing, not a real wedding. This new information hit me like a physical blow. She lied to him about what it was. Are you serious? Apparently. Look, Phoenix, I don't know what the truth is anymore, but our family is imploding. Dad moved out last night after finding your formal wedding invitation hidden in Mom's desk. He's saying if she deliberately kept him from your wedding, they're done. I sat down heavily, trying to process this. My mother's deception went deeper than I'd imagined. She hadn't just scheduled a conflict. She'd actively misrepresented my wedding to my father to ensure his absence as well. Phoenix, are you still there? Tyler asked. I'm here, I replied. I need time to think. Well, think fast, my brother said bitterly. Because things are falling apart, and you started it. No, Tyler, I didn't start this. Mom's been orchestrating this dynamic our entire lives. The only difference is now other people can see it, too. After hanging up, I turned to Autumn, who had heard everything. My father didn't know, I said numbly. She lied to him about what the wedding was. Autumn's expression hardened. That's beyond manipulation. That's cruel to both you and your father. My phone rang again. This time, it was Dad himself. I took a deep breath before answering. Dad, Phoenix. His voice was rough, as though he'd been crying. We need to talk. Can I come over? 20 minutes later, my father sat in our living room, looking like he'd aged a decade. His normally neat appearance was disheveled, unshaven, wearing wrinkled clothes. I didn't know, were his first words after declining coffee. I swear to you, Phoenix, I had no idea what I was missing. What did Mom tell you about the wedding? I asked quietly. He ran a hand through his graying hair. She said you and Autumn were having a small civil ceremony at the courthouse with just a few friends, that there'd be a proper reception later we could attend. He looked up, anguish in his eyes. She said you understood we needed to be at Tyler's game and were fine with it. The calculated nature of my mother's lies stunned me into momentary silence. When I saw those photos, my father continued, his voice breaking, the venue. Autumn in her wedding gown. You waiting at the altar. It was obviously a formal wedding. A beautiful one I should have been at. I sent formal invitations months ago, Dad, I said. I brought schedules to the house. I specifically told both of you it was a once-in-a-lifetime event. My father nodded miserably. I know that now. When the story broke, I searched the house and found the invitation hidden in your mother's desk drawer. She never showed it to me. And when you visited, she always made sure I was busy or distracted when you discussed wedding details. How could you not know, Dad? I literally begged you both not to miss it. I thought you were being dramatic about a courthouse appointment, he said, shame evident in his voice. Your mother is very convincing, Phoenix. She's been managing our family schedule for 30 years. I trusted her completely. A heavy silence fell. Autumn had tactfully made herself scarce, giving us privacy. What happened when you found the invitation? I finally asked. My father's face hardened. I confronted her, asked her directly if she knew what our son's wedding really was, and deliberately kept it from me. He swallowed hard. She denied it at first, said it was a misunderstanding. Then I showed her the invitation, with the RSVP card she'd marked regretfully declined and mailed back without my knowledge. What did she say then? She claimed she was protecting Tyler's future, that your wedding was one day, but his athletic career was his entire life. My father's hands clenched. We've been arguing for days. I told her if she knowingly kept me from my firstborn son's wedding day, We're done. 35 years of marriage. Over just like that. The magnitude of the situation washed over me. My viral post hadn't just exposed my mother's behavior. It had potentially ended my parents' marriage. Despite everything, that wasn't what I'd wanted. Dad, I never intended. This isn't your fault, he interrupted firmly. You shared your wedding photos. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is what those photos revealed, that your mother and I weren't there on the most important day of your life. That's on us, not you. My father stayed for nearly 2 hours. We talked more openly than ever before. He admitted he'd allowed Mom to manage family affairs so completely that he'd lost sight of what was happening. He'd been so focused on his career and Tyler's potential that he'd failed to notice the systematic way I'd been sidelined. I should have paid more attention, he said, wiping tears from his eyes. I should have questioned why we never seemed to make it to your events, why your achievements were always mentioned in passing while we spent hours discussing Tyler's games. You were there sometimes, I said, remembering rare occasions. Not enough. Not nearly enough. He took a shaky breath. I don't know if you can forgive me, Phoenix. I wouldn't blame you if you couldn't, but I want you to know I'm truly sorry, and I'm going to do better if you'll give me the chance. After my father left, Autumn returned. How was it? She asked, sitting beside me. Painful, I admitted, but maybe necessary. He seems genuinely devastated about missing the wedding and furious with Mom for deceiving him. What happens now? I don't know. He's staying at a hotel. Says he can't be in the same house as Mom right now. The next day brought another wave of drama. My phone rang continuously. Extended family choosing sides, childhood friends expressing support, and even Tyler calling back with a markedly different tone. I talked to Jason, he said without preamble, and some of the other guys. They confirmed what you said about the game. It was completely meaningless. Just an exhibition match Mom arranged. I'm sorry, Tyler. I know this is hard for you, too. He was quiet for a moment. All these years, I thought I was special, that my talents were the reason Mom and Dad focused so much on me. Now, I'm wondering if Mom just used me to make sure you never got the spotlight. The insight surprised me, showing more self-awareness than I'd given my brother credit for. It wasn't your fault, I said. We were both just playing the role she assigned us. Later that day, my Aunt Carol called. My mother's sister had always been more perceptive than most. I've been thinking about this since I saw your wedding photos, she said. And I need to tell you something. This pattern with your mother goes back much further than you know. She shared stories from their childhood. How Mom had always needed to be the center of attention. How she'd sabotaged her own sister's important moments. When I got engaged, she announced her pregnancy with you at my engagement party. When I graduated college, she went into premature labor that mysteriously resolved once my ceremony was over. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because I should have said something years ago when I saw her doing the same thing to you. I recognized the signs, Phoenix, the way she'd schedule conflicts, the way she'd diminish your achievements while magnifying Tyler's. I just didn't want to interfere in your family dynamics. I wish you had, I said honestly. I know. I'm sorry. She paused. There's something else you should know. Your mother has been calling family members, claiming you're exaggerating about the wedding, that it wasn't a real event, just a small gathering you blew out of proportion on social media for attention. My hands tightened around the phone. That's absolutely false. We had 150 guests. A full ceremony, professional photography, and catering. I believe you, Phoenix, Aunt Carol assured me. And most of the family does, too. But she's desperate to control the narrative now that everything's exposed. By the end of the week, our family had divided into factions. My father remained at his hotel, refusing to return home until my mother admitted to her deliberate deception. My mother continued to spin alternative versions of events. Tyler seemed caught in the middle, his certainty about his role in the family shaken. The most surprising development came when my cousin Grace, whose baby shower had been where I overheard Mom arranging the game, reached out with a recording. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, she explained. But after you left so suddenly that day, I was concerned. I heard Aunt Linda on the phone and remembered you asking about a soccer game. Something felt off, so I recorded her conversation. She sent the audio file. Clear evidence of my mother deliberately scheduling a conflict, knowing exactly what she was doing. Her words were unambiguous. Yes, I know it's my son's wedding day. That's precisely why we need this game scheduled then. Trust me, this is important. When I played this recording for my father over the phone, his response was immediate. That's it. I've heard enough. I'm filing for divorce. Dad, wait. I said quickly. Is that really what you want? What I want, he replied heavily, is a time machine to go back and be at your wedding. Since that's not possible, I'll settle for holding your mother accountable for her choices. She didn't just lie to you, Phoenix. She lied to me for decades, manipulating our entire family structure. I can't stay married to someone capable of that level of deception. The situation had escalated beyond anything I'd anticipated. What began as personal disappointment had evolved into a full family implosion. My parents' marriage was on the brink. Extended family members were taking sides. Tyler was questioning his entire childhood. And at the center of it all was my mother, still denying any deliberate wrongdoing despite mounting evidence. Autumn found me that evening, staring blankly at the wall, overwhelmed. This isn't what I wanted, I told her. I never intended to blow up my entire family. You didn't do this, she said firmly, taking my hands. Your mother's actions over many years did this. All you did was get married and share your photos like millions of people do every day. But if I hadn't posted those specific images, then she would have continued manipulating everyone without consequence. Autumn interrupted. Phoenix, this isn't your responsibility to fix. Some things need to break before they can heal properly. I knew she was right, but the weight of it all still pressed heavily on me. Generations of family dysfunction had culminated in this moment of reckoning, and somehow, I'd become the catalyst. What happened next would determine whether our family shattered completely or found a way to rebuild on more honest terms. After a week of chaos, I decided it was time to take control. The constant calls, messages, and escalating drama were consuming our lives and overshadowing what should have been a joyful time as newlyweds. I need to address this head-on, I told Autumn over breakfast. Bring everyone together and lay everything out in the open. No more separate conversations where different versions of the truth can exist. She studied me carefully. Are you sure that's what you want? It could get very ugly. It's already ugly, I replied. At least this way, everyone will be responding to the same information at the same time. With Autumn's support, I arranged a family meeting at a neutral location, a private room at a local restaurant. I invited my parents, requesting they come separately, Tyler, and a few key extended family members, including Aunt Carol and Grace. I arrived early to set up, placing a laptop, speakers, and a small projector on the table. Autumn came for moral support, but agreed to wait in the main dining area. This is for your family to work through, she said. I'm here if you need me, but my presence might make your mother even more defensive. My father arrived first, haggard but determined. I'm proud of you for doing this, he said, embracing me. It's long overdue. Tyler came next, then Aunt Carol and Grace. My mother was last, entering with the air of someone attending an ambush. She took a seat as far from my father as possible. Once everyone was settled, I stood at the head of the table. For the first time in my life, I felt completely in command of a family gathering. Thank you all for coming, I began. I've asked you here because what started as a personal disappointment, my parents missing my wedding, has spiraled into something much larger that's affecting all of us. Before anyone makes permanent decisions about relationships or takes further actions, I think we need to establish the facts and understand the patterns that brought us here. I connected my laptop to the projector and displayed a timeline I'd created, beginning with my earliest memories of important events my parents had missed in favor of Tyler's activities. Beside each entry, I'd included any available evidence, photographs, emails, calendar invitations. This isn't about blaming Tyler, I said, noticing his discomfort. He was a child, following the structure our parents created. This is about understanding a family dynamic that's been in place for decades. I moved chronologically through the evidence, including video clips from old family recordings where Mom could be clearly heard arranging conflicts. I played Grace's audio recording from the baby shower. I showed screenshots of messages from Tyler's teammates confirming the exhibition game had no significance. The pattern is consistent, I concluded. Mom systematically arranged for Tyler's activities to take priority over mine, often creating conflicts deliberately to ensure my events would be missed or minimized. My mother, who had been shifting uncomfortably, finally erupted. This is absurd. You're twisting normal parenting decisions into some kind of conspiracy against you. Tyler needed our support for his athletic development. You were always more independent. Mom, I said calmly, I have literal recordings of you arranging conflicts. There's no room for interpretation here. Those are taken out of context, she insisted. Tyler surprised me by speaking up. Mom, stop. I've talked to my teammates. I know the exhibition game was meaningless. You told me it was crucial for my college prospects, but there weren't even any scouts there. My mother turned to him, betrayal in her eyes. I was trying to help your career, Tyler. Everything I've done has been for this family. No, my father interjected firmly. Everything you've done has been to maintain control over this family. You decided Phoenix didn't need attention and Tyler did, and you manipulated all of us to maintain that narrative for 33 years. The conversation continued intensely for nearly an hour. My mother cycled through denials, then minimizations, then attempts to justify her actions. When those strategies failed against the weight of evidence, she broke down in tears. Fine. Is that what you want to hear? Yes. I arranged some conflicts, but only because Tyler truly needed the support more. Phoenix was always going to be fine on his own. He had his intelligence, his focus. Tyler needed us physically present to succeed. That wasn't your decision to make, I said quietly. You don't get to decide which child deserves to have parents present for life's important moments. I was trying to be efficient with our family resources, she insisted. Time, attention, support, these are finite. I was allocating them where they seemed most needed. And in this calculation, Aunt Carol said, speaking for the first time, you never considered that Phoenix might need his parents at his high school graduation, his college acceptance celebration, his wedding. My mother looked away. He had other people. He always had friends, mentors, eventually Autumn and her family. Tyler only had us. That's because you deliberately isolated him to maintain his dependence, my father said, his voice laced with new understanding. You made sure you were his only source of support while encouraging Phoenix to look elsewhere. The raw truth of this observation hung in the air. My mother had no response. After another lengthy silence, I spoke again. I didn't call this meeting to punish anyone or to force apologies. I called it because I'm establishing boundaries going forward. I'm married now, building my own family with Autumn. I need to decide what role each of you will play in our lives, especially since Autumn and I are expecting a child. The announcement slipped out before I'd planned to share it. Autumn and I had confirmed the pregnancy just before our wedding, but had kept it private, intending to announce it after our honeymoon. The timing wasn't how I'd envisioned sharing the news, but it underscored the stakes of this family reckoning. My father's face lit up briefly before sobering again. Tyler looked genuinely happy for me. My mother's expression was unreadable. Congratulations, Aunt Carol said warmly. That's wonderful news. Thank you, I replied. And it's why this matters so much. I won't allow the same patterns to continue into the next generation. I won't have my child wondering why certain family members miss their important moments or feeling less valued than their cousins. I laid out my terms clearly. Anyone who wanted a relationship with me, Autumn, and our child would need to respect specific boundaries. No more manipulative scheduling, no more comparative treatment, and most importantly, acknowledgement of past patterns rather than denial. I'm particularly concerned about your behavior, Mom, I said directly. You've shown no real recognition that your actions were harmful, despite overwhelming evidence. Until that changes, I don't see how we can have a healthy relationship. My mother's face crumpled. For the first time, she seemed to grasp the seriousness of the situation. You'd keep my grandchild from me? I'd protect my child from manipulation and conditional love, I corrected. The choice is yours whether to be part of their life by accepting these boundaries. My father nodded approvingly. I think Phoenix's terms are more than reasonable. I'll be adhering to them myself. Tyler looked thoughtful. I'm still processing everything, but I want to be a good uncle. I'm in. The meeting concluded without neat resolutions, but with a clear understanding of where everyone stood. My mother remained the most resistant, unable or unwilling to fully acknowledge her responsibility. My father confirmed his intention to proceed with divorce. Tyler seemed genuinely committed to building a healthier relationship with me. As people began to leave, my father pulled me aside. I meant what I said earlier. I'm proud of you, Phoenix. What you did today took tremendous courage. I learned something important recently, I told him, from Autumn and her family. Love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day in how you treat people. I'm choosing to break this cycle, even if it's painful in the short term. He nodded, eyes glistening. I hope I can be part of that new beginning. I hope so too, Dad. As the last family members departed, Autumn joined me in the now empty room. How did it go? She asked, taking my hand. About as well as could be expected, I replied. Nothing's resolved completely, but at least everyone's working with the same set of facts now. And your mother? I sighed, still resistant. But she knows what needs to happen if she wants to be in our lives. The ball is in her court now. Autumn rested her head on my shoulder. I'm so proud of you for taking control of this situation. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, I admitted. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I've truly stood up for myself, and more importantly, for our future, for our child. She placed my hand on her still flat stomach. This little one is lucky to have you as their father. I'm going to be present for every moment, I promised. Every milestone, every achievement, every ordinary Tuesday. They'll never question whether they matter. As we left the restaurant, I felt a profound shift. The pain of my parents missing my wedding hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something constructive. It was the catalyst for breaking generational patterns that might otherwise have continued unchallenged. For the first time, I wasn't hoping for change from others. I was creating it myself. 6 months after our confrontation, spring brought new beginnings in more ways than one. Autumn's pregnancy was progressing beautifully. We were expecting a little girl in early summer. We'd transformed our spare room into a nursery, painted pale yellow with woodland creatures dancing across one wall, Autumn's artistic touch making the space magical. In those months, our families had also undergone significant transformations. My father had followed through with the divorce proceedings, moving permanently into an apartment closer to our home. Without my mother's influence, he'd become increasingly present in our lives, helping with weekend renovation projects and regularly checking in about the pregnancy. Tyler had surprised me with his commitment to rebuilding our relationship. He'd started therapy, working through his role in our family dynamics, and the realization that he'd been manipulated as much as I had been. We were slowly developing the brotherly bond that had been artificially suppressed throughout our childhood. My mother remained the most resistant to change. After the family meeting, she'd cycled through various strategies, tearful pleas, angry accusations, attempts at minimizing her actions. When those failed to sway anyone, she'd retreated into isolation, communicating only through occasional texts that fluctuated between self-pity and superficial inquiries about the pregnancy. As my boundaries held firm, a subtle shift began. Her messages became less manipulative and more reflective. 2 months after our confrontation, she asked if she could meet with me one-on-one for coffee at a neutral cafe. She admitted, for the first time, that she recognized her behavior patterns. I had a difficult relationship with my own mother, she explained, not as an excuse, but as context. She always favored my sister, Carol. I think I unconsciously recreated that dynamic with you and Tyler, but with me in control this time. She paused, struggling visibly. I'm working with a therapist now. She's helping me understand why I felt compelled to manage everyone's relationships this way. It wasn't a complete transformation, but it was a beginning. I maintained my boundaries while acknowledging her efforts. I appreciate your willingness to look at this honestly, I told her. That's the first step toward being part of our lives going forward. Our relationship remained tentative, with carefully managed interactions and constant vigilance against slipping back into old patterns, but the effort seemed genuine on both sides. As Autumn's due date approached, I had an idea that could potentially provide healing for everyone involved. After discussing it thoroughly with her, we decided to host a vow renewal ceremony at our home, timed to coincide with our first anniversary in September. It's not about replacing our original wedding, I explained when Autumn questioned if this might erase the importance of what had happened. It's about offering a second chance, to ourselves and to my family, to experience a celebration of our commitment with everyone present this time. She considered this thoughtfully before agreeing. As long as we're doing it for the right reasons, Phoenix. Not to paper over what happened, but to create a new memory alongside the original one. I sent personal invitations to each family member, including my mother. Her response came quickly, a tearful phone call, accepting with gratitude and asking what she could do to help. I gave her a small, contained role in the preparations, a test she seemed to understand the significance of. The day of the vow renewal arrived warm and golden, much like our wedding day a year earlier. Our daughter, Eleanor, was 3 months old by then, a peaceful baby with autumn's eyes and, everyone said, my contemplative expression. She wore a tiny dress that complemented her mother's simple renewal gown. We held the ceremony in our backyard, transformed with flowers and twinkling lights into an intimate garden setting. Unlike our wedding with its 150 guests, we invited only immediate family and closest friends, perhaps 30 people altogether. My father arrived early, eager to help with final arrangements. The joy on his face as he cradled his granddaughter reflected the healing that had begun. Tyler came next, bringing his new girlfriend, Claire, whom he'd met through his therapy support group. When my mother arrived, there was a palpable tension that softened as she respectfully followed the boundaries we'd established. She didn't try to take over, didn't create drama, and most importantly, showed genuine happiness for our celebration without making it about herself. The ceremony itself was simple but meaningful. Autumn and I recommitted to our vows with Eleanor sleeping peacefully in her carrier nearby. This time, when I looked out at our small gathering, I saw my complete family present, not without complications, but present nonetheless. My father stood as my best man, a role he'd missed the first time. During the reception that followed, he gave the toast he'd never had the chance to deliver. To Phoenix and Autumn, he said, glass raised, for showing us all what real commitment looks like, not just to each other, but to creating a family defined by respect, honesty, and genuine love. You've taught this old man that it's never too late to learn how to love better. Later, as guests mingled in the warm evening, my mother approached me tentatively. Thank you for including me today, she said, her voice uncharacteristically humble. I know I didn't deserve this second chance. It's not about deserving, I replied. It's about choosing a different path forward. I've been thinking about what you said at our family meeting, she continued. About love being a choice you make every day and how you treat people. I'm trying to make better choices now. I've noticed, I acknowledged, and I appreciate the effort. She glanced toward Autumn, who was showing Eleanor to Tyler and Claire. She's a remarkable woman. You chose well. Yes, I agreed. And she chose me, too, which is something I never take for granted. My mother nodded, understanding the subtle reference to my years of feeling unchosen in my own family. I hope someday Eleanor will know a very different grandmother than the mother you grew up with. That's entirely up to you, I said. Honestly, the past can't be changed, but the future is unwritten. The renewal ceremony became a turning point in our family's healing process. My father and I developed the close relationship we should have had all along. He became a devoted grandfather, stopping by regularly with children's books and tiny sports equipment for when she's ready. Tyler and I built a genuine brotherhood, based on mutual respect rather than competition. He made a point of being present for Eleanor's baby milestones, taking ridiculous numbers of photos and proudly declaring himself her favorite uncle. Despite being her only uncle, my mother's transformation was the most gradual, but perhaps the most profound. She continued therapy, gradually developing self-awareness about her controlling tendencies. While our relationship would never be uncomplicated, we established a new foundation based on honesty and clear boundaries. She proved her commitment by respecting our parenting decisions and showing up consistently for Eleanor, without attempting to dominate or manipulate. The winter holidays that year brought another test as we navigated our first Christmas as new parents with our reconfigured family structure. Rather than attempting to recreate past traditions, we established new ones in our home, inviting each family member to contribute something meaningful to the celebration. On Christmas Eve, as Eleanor slept upstairs and our family gathered in the living room, illuminated only by the tree lights, I found myself overwhelmed with gratitude for the painful journey that had led us here. The absence of my parents at my wedding, a wound that had seemed unbearable at the time, had ultimately forced the necessary breakdown of toxic patterns that might otherwise have continued indefinitely. I want to share something, I said, drawing everyone's attention. A year and a half ago, I stood alone at the altar on my wedding day, feeling abandoned by my family. That moment of pain could have defined me, made me bitter, or closed off. Instead, it became the catalyst for all of us to confront truths we'd been avoiding for decades. I looked around at each face, my father, Tyler, even my mother, seeing the recognition in their eyes. None of this has been easy. But when I look at my daughter sleeping upstairs, I know every difficult conversation, every painful realization, every tear shed was worth it. Because she'll grow up in a family that's broken and healed, rather than one that's broken and pretending not to be. My father raised his glass. To honest healing. To second chances, my mother added softly. To family, Tyler concluded, the real kind. As we moved into the new year, I reflected often on the life lesson embedded in our family's transformation. Sometimes the most painful betrayals lead to the most necessary growth. True family isn't defined by obligation or blood, but by respect, honesty, and the daily choice to love actively through our actions. The breaking of what was allowed for the building of something stronger, more authentic, and ultimately more loving than what had existed before. Eleanor would grow up surrounded by imperfect people who had faced their flaws and chosen a better path forward. And in that truth lay the most meaningful legacy I could offer her. The courage to demand authenticity in her relationships and the wisdom to know that healing often begins at the moment we think everything is falling apart. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members to protect yourself or someone you love? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my journey. I hope it brings some comfort if you're going through something similar.